Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So we are going to get you in fit, make you realize why certain parts of our body, like the core, is so important for your mobility and especially as you age. And he's somebody that helps people with that all the time. Creating Change LLC in Largo, Florida is his business and center. And he's Mark Hayward. And he's back with us. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good morning, Steve. Doing well. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm going to be transparent here. So we were talking before we got on here, and I said, "Man, I didn't make it to the gym today. I wish I did. I only had like 40 minutes, and it didn't seem like it was even worth getting into the gym." And then you say, "Yeah, I squeezed in a 10-minute workout. I feel great." And I'm like, I feel like I'm guilt, like I should have done that. 10-minute workout.
Trying
What did you do today? Let's start there. Kind of curious. Somebody like you that helps people with their
it's fun.
fitness.
Well, one of my go-tos, because I know it's going to hit a lot of areas, is deadlifting. I have a curl bar. Actually, I purchased it for my oldest son. He doesn't really use it, so now it's mine. And it doesn't take up a lot of space. So my office is not, it's not a big office. I don't have a lot of space. I got a little corner there, and I got the curl bar and some plates, and a few dumbbells, kettlebells, a slant bar. So I got some few essentials that I can knock out an intensive 10-minute routine, because consistency is the key. So today I did like 3 or 4 sets of deadlifts, nothing too heavy. Threw in some Romanian deadlifts. So I'm hitting my back chain, my glutes, my hammies, and I'm also incorporating core into that. And you mentioned core, and you nailed it. Core, everything starts with the core. And you also mentioned about as we get old, it seems like, from my personal experience, definitely, and of course people I work with, as people age, if they're not addressing or engaging their core properly, they're not incorporating it into some sort of activity, it gets lost, disappears, and everything starts from the core. You can list a long list of aches and pains and stability issues and tie them all back to your core strength and stability. So it's pretty important.
So it's so true. And I'll share in my journey. 2 years ago, I was in what I felt to be the best shape in a decade and a half, maybe more, because I kicked it in. I pushed it. Then I kind of got a little lazy and gained like 17 pounds on me. That's a lot. And then I realized, and sitting a lot, that was, the other transition, just, change in terms of my work schedule, not moving around as much. And man, when I got back into it, I realized that even the stretching, sitting is the new smoking. It is so true that it really is.
It so is. I love that. I'm going to steal that one, Steve.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Because it is. I went from
Yeah.
this to this. I'm like, what is going on here? And it was just sedentary lifestyle where you're not moving as much or even just standing as much. And it really does make a difference in everything, especially as you get older, but definitely the core. I mean, I feel like I set myself like I may move 5 steps forward and then easily 3 steps back in that period of time. And not easy catching up. That's not easy catching
Right.
up.
Yeah, as we age, unfortunately, we lose gains as far as strength and mobility quite quickly.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but we don't have, once you hit a certain mark, I'm not going to throw a number out there because it's different from for most people, although there are some patterns that you can rely on. But we don't have the luxury of not moving, of not doing something pretty much on a daily basis. Consistency is the key. The good thing is that if you do put in the time, you do put in the consistency, and I will throw out a number, let's say 3 to 6 months where you're being very consistent with some sort of fitness and mobility routine. And then something happens, vacation or whatnot, and you take some time off, you can kind of pick up from where you left off. But that's 3 to 6 months of consistent work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that key. We lose it so quickly as we age. And sitting, our body's not meant to be sitting, not sitting around. You know, a little bit of sitting here, a little bit of sitting there. And now studies are coming out about squatting. That's sort of trending now, deep squatting. If you look at some of the blue zone people, the people who have lived, you know, past 100 years, and they list what are their commonalities, and one of them is they don't really sit in chairs and stuff. They squat. You know what I mean? The position of sitting kind of really takes the core out of the picture. And a lot of it's depending on your hip flexors, just holding yourself up, and your back. So it just really overworks those issues, and it tightens them up, and it puts your core to sleep. So what you don't use, you lose. So yeah, sitting is kind of the enemy for us. You know, go ahead.
I wanna get into hip and pelvic stability. Really important. You just hit it, you know, the flexors, hip flexors. But back to what you said in terms of as we age, what goes on in our body that makes it harder to bounce back? Like when I was in my 20s, hey, it's warmer out now here in the Northeast. I'm just going to eat a bowl of oatmeal and I'm going to just go jogging. And in a week, yeah, all right, I'm feeling good. Dropped a few pounds, ready for the summer. Now you gain 10 pounds, you own it. It's there. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. You got to work even harder. But the challenge is, as you're older, now you have more pain. You know, your knees aren't the same. You're more tired. So what's going on there within our bodies as we age that makes it harder to get back into shape?
Sure. And again, you hit it on the head. It's the bounce back capabilities that we're lost. You know, with dedicated, consistent work, fitness routine work, you can pretty much do what you've been doing. You got to adjust it a little bit for the age, but it's the recovery period that's the issue. We just don't recover as well. And in simple terms, it's just wear and tear. You know, our tissues are not flowing like they used to. The integrity of the joints, you know, worn out a little bit. So it's just the time has put in a load of stress on our physical body. And, you know, when you're younger, you don't have that same wear and tear. You know, because you can take, let's take a high level, a school athlete, you know, college athlete that's really been, you know, wearing and tearing his body. He or she will feel that same sort of inability to recover well that maybe somebody 10, 20 years older would, who didn't go through that physical demand. So it's just basically wear and tear. Things are just not flowing as they used to. The tissues are just not, it's the integrity is lost a little bit. But I'm all about regenerative work. You know, I believe the body is always working for us. It's always trying to find balance. It's always trying to give us the adaptability for whatever demands we put on it. You just have to be a little, you know, you just have to help it a little bit, you know, as we age. You just got to be a little smart about what we're doing. There's certain things you just can't do the way you used to do. So you don't do those things, you adjust. And then you have to allow for recovery time. And what that means basically is you have to do activities that will allow your body to facilitate recovery. In other words, let's say you go lift hard, you know, let's say you do bench press or arms, you go in the gym, you lift real hard. When you were in your 20s, you know, early 30s, you could probably do that 3-4 times a week and be okay. Now, when you get 40s and 50s, you might want to do that just 1 or 2 times a week, putting 1 or 2 days of recovery in between. So that's an example of things that you have to implement as we age. I like to tell folks, you know, when they come in and they're dealing with pains and it's keeping them from doing stuff they love, you know, certain activities, you know, they're like, oh, I guess I got to stop doing that. Should I stop doing that? And I tell people, I never want to tell anybody to stop doing what they love to do. Let's just adjust. Let's just make some adjustments and let's implement activities that are going to help your body recover so that you can continue doing these activities.
When you say recover, how do you define that? I mean, it seems rhetorical, but, you know, let's say you work out 2 days, should there be recovery? That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Recovery time is time. It's basically time. It's 2 things. It's time. It's time to allow your body to rebuild from the stress that you applied on it. Building muscle is really, you're doing demolition work. You're tearing muscle fibers. If your goal is to build strength and to build muscle mass, as you add that stress of moving weight around, you're ripping through muscle tissue, because if you're doing it right, you're ripping up some muscle tissue. So the gains happen during the recovery time, because the body's going, hey, my master is asking me to do this repetitively. Obviously, I need to build more muscle to put up with this demand. So it's recreating more muscle fiber tissue. And that happens during the recovery stage. It doesn't happen while you're pumping weights. While you're pumping weights, you're actually tearing down fibers. So that time is crucial. That's where your gains are. The other aspect of recovery is, we can use the same example. Let's say you lifted hard. And of course, when you're doing contraction, lifting weights, you're shortening the muscle. And doing that at a high level, you're going to create tightness and shortness within that muscle fibers. So that's going to decrease your mobility. So that's where the stretching comes in. So stretching is a form of recovery activity. And of course, there's many variations of stretching. That's why yoga, there's many styles of yoga. Yoga is a very therapeutic, one of the most therapeutic activities you can do. And there are certain styles of yoga that deal specifically with restoration and recovery of the body. They're putting your body in certain positions that are going to allow for extension and opening to allow for the body to recover from other activities.
Should you feel pain? Some kind of soreness after you work out, as you said. If you're doing it right and you're ripping up the fibers there for growth after the recovery, should you feel something?
Very good question. There's different types of pain, right? Those who work out, feel that muscle soreness. They call it delayed onset, delayed soreness. Maybe the next day or in 2 days, and it's just sore. And that's okay. That's part of the process. And usually that pain is kind of like an ache.
Yeah.
Massage therapists, we've learned different variations of pain. And it's very important. So it's a really good question. Dull, achy pain is usually kind of normal, and it's something that's part of the process. And as long as it goes away in a couple of days, you're okay. You may need some ice or heat to help with that. Sharp, like really intense, maybe even electrical pain is not good. If you feel something that's really intense and sharp, now you've crossed the line, and you perhaps are dealing with an injury, and especially if it doesn't go away. Especially if while you're working out, I'm always leaning on the side of caution. I'm trying to always be on that line before you hurt yourself, and then we flirt with that, let's push you a little bit just to make sure we're progressing. That's kind of my style of training. You should not be working out through pain at all. Once again, soreness, yeah, maybe you can push it a little bit with soreness, but pain is your body indicating that there's something going on, and you got to make sure you're paying attention to that. So that's an excellent question.
I call it the good pain. Like I worked on legs and glutes on a I don't know what it's even, a rack, whatever it is. I've never done it before, at least to that degree, and I really kicked it in, and I was feeling it, but I knew that it was the good pain, like just walking, like but I know I'm making progress there. Let's go over to hips. You talked about flexors and all of that. That's an area of challenging mobility too, as you age, right?
Absolutely. I actually formed a program, Foundation Fitness Program. It's a 3-phase program. You start with deep core activation. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is hip pelvic balance and stability. Very dynamic, complex phase. There's like 17 muscles that cross the hip joint. So there's a lot of room for error in there. And unfortunately, all things stem from our core, right? And the pelvic is part of our core. You could probably, trace everything back, any issues, any compensatory issues, shoulder, neck, knee, foot. You could trace it back pretty much to your pelvic stability. That's where your demand is, right? And because of all those moving parts and all those dynamic demands you're putting on it, it's a kind of an ecosystem going on. And anything is missing, anything is off, it's going to create an imbalance. And if you're not, aware of it, you're not addressing it, you can go years where there's compensation. It's just building, building, building. And now what do you got? A knee replacement. People think, oh, it's arthritis in my knee. My knee is bad. Let me go switch it up. Most times, it's coming from the pelvic. It's instability in the pelvic.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a pretty complex phase in that program, in the sense that I have to do a lot of testing, a lot of strength testing, a lot of mobility testing to find specifically what the limitation is. What are we dealing with here? Before even I could do a whole session on just that, maybe even a session and a half, before we actually go into the corrective exercises. And there's a lot of stuff you can do, but it's crucial that because it's so many muscles and there's so many structural movement parts going on, that you're addressing the right, group or individual muscle. I'll give you a good example. We talked about, I mentioned about knee replacement. I'm pretty sure, and I've got quite a few knee replacement clients before and after and during. A lot of times it's instability in the hip, and I can narrow it down to one muscle in a lot of cases, many cases, not all of them. And that's your glute medius, right? That's your side glute, once on the side and a little high. And that job of that muscle is for externally rotating that leg out, which is something you do every time you take a step. Every time you take a step and you're getting ready to push off that, you're externally rotating your leg. That muscle should be kicking in to stabilize that hip. On many folks, that muscle has gone to sleep. A lot of it's because of the sitting, the positioning, and the lack of movement. So that muscle is not doing its job. The other muscles have to kick in. In a lot of cases, it's your TFL muscle, which is your tendon for your IT band, that band that shoots all the way down your thigh and hits your knee. That gets all janked up. And now all your weight and load is being hit on the side, and it's pounding that knee every time you set. And if you're doing any bending over, or if you're exercising and squatting, you're going to get arthritis in that knee, and eventually it's going to be a real issue. So very simple test. A couple of tests you can do, very simple. Oh, it's your glute medius. Let's get that guy woken up. Let's strengthen him a little bit. And now let's integrate him with your other glute muscles properly so he can do his job. He or she. It's just called the muscle heated.
I know it's reality, but the answer you just gave was not the one I wanted to hear. But it's the reality. But this is why all of this is so important, because everything is connected to everything else. So like you said, you have knee issues, it could be traced back potentially to your hips. And there you go. We don't, it's hips, I got to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about that. Therein lies the challenge.
The hips, most things can be traced back to the pelvic instability. Yeah. And we do nowadays, the mindset is very, it's quick. Everybody wants that quick fix. Everybody wants that quick answer. They want to be, okay, what is it? What do I got to do? How can I fix this now? And most processes just don't work like that, especially when you talk about the human body. Everything is connected. Everybody, there's not one part of your human body that's not doing a job. There's no part of your body that's just there, just hanging out. They all have a job to do, and they all work in synergy with other people or other muscles and other structures. So you have to, if you want to do it right, if you want to build a solid foundation for fitness, you have to look at the body holistically, and you have to take a global approach and work your way in. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And even your 10-minute workout today, in 10 minutes, it sounds like you concentrated a lot in there and you're consistent. So for the rest of us, take a lesson from that. If you dedicate, even if it's 15, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and you're intentional about it, focused in what you're doing, whether, 3 sets here, whatever, little gains like that Little things like that can make little gains that turn into the big ones, right?
Absolutely. It's consistency and quality. And people get overwhelmed because there's so much information out there. And that's
Yeah.
part of my work is I'm constantly, researching, trying to stay ahead of the curve. I want to present the best possible information I can to keep my clients safe and something that's effective and easy to do. That's kind of my MO. So I'm out there doing the work, searching, and I'm going to bring forth what I feel is the best, way to approach your issue or to achieve your goals. And it's overwhelming. There's so much information, and just talking to a client and saying, well, Bobby, boom, and if you do this, I can see their head spinning. So we have to baby step it, right? But what I usually tell folks is like, it's too much. I don't have, how do I get this all in? And this is what I say: do something every day. Do something every day. Take the you time, because we all should have that you time every day. You need that you time. You're no good to the world if you're not good to yourself. All right. And just hang out with yourself. Ask, listen. The body will tell you what to do today. And if it's 10 minutes, and if you put in your intention, like you said, this is my goal, you're not just going through the motions.
Yep.
You're adding a and focus, mind-body connection to what it is that you're doing. You're going to get a good, effective, quality workout. And 5 to 10 minutes of something intense like that is way, spread over your week, is way better than skipping days and then just going in and doing 2 hours at the gym, which is usually too much in most cases. It's way better just to do quality stuff.
Almost out of time. Curious about this question. If you're doing a workout and it's the same thing like every other day, I forget what the term is, muscle memory or whatever, where you got to change it up. Is something like that, but I'm trying to explain it, where if you're just doing the same thing, same weights, maybe you go a little heavier here and there. Do you really have to change it up?
You do. Your muscle, we're nothing but adapting machines. Our bodies just adapt. So if you're doing the same thing, your body's going to adapt to that activity. Progressing by adding weights, you will get gains. However, you're not adding more dimension. The effect that you had when you first started that activity is diminished if you're continuing to do it, way down the line, weeks and months. If you're doing it, you're not making a lot of change. It's not effective. Now, you might be maintaining, so I'm not going to say don't do it. If that's what you do, then that's what you do it. But switching things up is hugely beneficial. You've got to add dimension to your fitness program because our bodies are multidimensional. We move in various planes. So you want to hit as many planes as far as directions that you can. You want to implement mobilities. You want to implement some stretching. You want to implement some strength, real strength. You want to do compounds. You want to be tricking the body all the time to force your body to adapt. You don't want it to adapt to singular motions and then not be able to do another motion. So back in the day, it was kind of the trend. People just go in and they did circuits, right?
Yeah.
They hit the circuits, same thing. And basically, when you get to some point, you plateau. You're not gaining much. You're maintaining, which again, it's not the worst thing, but you're not progressing. And, we have the ability to make unlimited progressions. We can just continue to progress if we do the right things and facilitate that progression properly.
I'm definitely maintaining. I'm maintaining the extra 17 pounds. No doubt.
Well, look at it. You must be sitting. I'll see it.
Well, it's not that bad, but it's, I know everybody knows what makes them feel good. So I have a certain weight in mind where I know that's where I should be. And I've done the body fat test and that's what it comes back as well. Even before I did the test, I knew, you definitely, around the middle and all of that. But I do feel like when I said I got on that squat rack and the glutes, I changed it up and whoa, big difference. Or even doing flies on the floor. Haven't done those in years. It's always on a bench. Now on the floor, that was different. Wow. I felt it like the next day. I was like,
Different fibers. That's really good.
yeah.
Switching it up.
Rip it up. That's that's what it is. Rip it up. Mark, tell us how we learn more about you. I know that you're in Largo, Florida, where your center is, but can anybody even pick your brain if they're located somewhere else? Consultation virtually. Just wondering.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. My phone number is always available, 727-519-8786. And the website is creatingchangellc.com. And sure, I do consultations all the time. I have on my service, my menu is a weight management consultation. I do meditation consultation. I help people sometimes remotely on how to get that practice going.
Sure.
The weight training and the physical fitness, for the most part, is a hands-on. Because again, I'm very cautious. I don't want people to hurt themselves.
Right.
So I can give general guidelines and fill in some blanks. Usually folks already have an idea of what they want, and they just want to make sure, that they're putting it together properly. So yeah, I provide counseling in that manner.
CreatingChangeLLC.com. Is that your website?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes,
Mark, thanks for all the insight today, all the info. So important to stay fit, move our lives forward, feel good. It's all there. And I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Steve. Have a wonderful day.
You too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.